At a family dinner, someone makes the usual joke about you being too blunt, and the table waits for you to soften it, laugh it off, or rescue everyone from the discomfort your honesty just created. You can almost see them waiting for the old reflex. This time, you don't. People may call that bitterness, stubbornness, or proof that Gen X has become impossible to please because it's easier to blame your tone than to ask why the truth suddenly feels so threatening, especially when everyone understood exactly what you meant. You didn't become cruel. You stopped editing reality for other people. You grew up in a world of house keys on shoelaces, landline phones fixed to the wall, ashtrays on kitchen tables, and adults who often said, "You'll figure it out," before disappearing back into work, worry, or their own unfinished lives. Independence wasn't discussed. It was assigned. There was no group chat checking whether you got home safely, no location dot moving across a screen, and no adult language for every fear. When something went wrong, you patched the bike, found a neighbor, walked home in the dark, or waited until someone finally noticed. You learned that panic had to stay quiet, need had to be useful, and hurt had to wait until there was enough time, money, or patience for somebody else to deal with it. Even comfort felt like something you had to earn. So your face stayed still while your stomach tightened. Your hands kept working while your voice said, "I'm fine." You carried groceries, fixed the broken hinge, watched younger siblings, and learned to hide confusion behind competence before anyone could use it against you. Looking capable became your safest disguise. That old training still shapes what you hear now. "You're so independent" can sound like praise, but you often hear the hidden request beneath it. Keep needing less. Keep asking for nothing, and please continue making everyone else's life easier without creating a problem we have to notice. Admiration becomes a polite way of withdrawing support. When someone says, "You always know what to do," you may hear something different now. "We've decided your calm belongs to us, your time is available, and your ability to cope means nobody has to ask what carrying all this is costing you." Competence quietly turns into permanent duty, and your overreacting often means your honesty is making this harder to ignore. And we preferred you when you made the truth easier to dismiss. You don't just hear the words anymore. You hear the job hidden inside them. After decades of watching promises change, workplaces restructure, families avoid hard conversations, and public rules shift depending on who benefits, repetition becomes evidence. You've seen how often "be reasonable" means accept less, and how quickly "don't make this awkward" protects the person who caused the awkwardness. Pattern recognition replaces patience. That's why your bluntness isn't random. It's memory finally refusing to pretend it has learned nothing, even when politeness would make the room easier for everyone else. But here's the uncomfortable part. You may have helped people believe you needed less than you did. Every time you solved the crisis before anyone saw it, swallowed the honest answer, or made your disappointment sound like a joke, you taught the room that your limits were flexible and your silence was free. Reliability became the costume nobody questioned. You said, "No worries," when there were worries. You answered the late call, covered the missing shift, loaned the money, changed the plan, and deleted the sharper sentence before sending the message because you knew exactly how quickly honesty could be turned into a character flaw. Then you carried the resentment privately. Other people benefited from your restraint, and you also used that restraint to stay safe, keep the peace, and avoid depending on people who might let you down. They learned to lean on you, while you learned to disappear inside being reliable. Both sides called the arrangement normal. So are you finally speaking freely, or are you making people feel the silence they once handed you? Probably both. What looks like anger is often relief. Relief that you no longer have to translate every obvious truth into gentle language for people who understood it the first time, but preferred the version that asked nothing of them. Relief can sound sharp when it has been delayed for 30 years. It sounds like saying, "That doesn't work for me," without building a courtroom case. It feels like letting the phone ring when the same person only calls with emergencies. It looks like leaving a task unfinished long enough for someone else to notice it was never automatically yours. The world doesn't end. It simply redistributes the weight. You haven't stopped caring. You've stopped confusing care with permanent access. You can love someone and still refuse to absorb every consequence for them. You can help without becoming the system that keeps their habits running, especially when the hidden cost is your sleep, your time, your health, or your self-respect. Care without limits eventually becomes quiet self-erasure. The old bill finally reached the right address. Your honesty isn't rebellion. It's the end of unpaid emotional labor. Back at that family table, the joke lands, the room tightens, and nobody gets the familiar version of you who smiles first, explains second, and makes the discomfort disappear before the plates are cleared. Your fork stays still, and your answer remains exactly where you placed it. The silence stays where it belongs. Someone else has to decide whether to ask a real question, defend the old story, or sit with the possibility that what they called your attitude was actually the truth they depended on you to keep hidden. For once, you don't rush in to choose for them. So which are you becoming, the person who keeps the room comfortable, or the person who finally lets the truth stay spoken?